In our previous class, we discussed about how to create the Excel file and then how to read the data or how to write the data. But we have not discussed about too many things, but at least the basics we have seen, right? How to use it. Okay. So today what we do is we will go in detail how to read the data from Excel, various methods and all whatever we use, different methods, okay, and uses of them, okay. So now before going into the detail, first understand the purpose of this, why we need to learn this Excel, reading the data from Excel and all. So whenever you are doing automation testing, right, just not only automation testing, whenever you are doing testing, then the test data is crucial part always, right? So test data, in a sense, the inputs that what we provide into the application when you are testing. So that's more important here. Okay, so when you are doing manual testing, you can store the data in anywhere and then you can take the data from it. But when you are doing automation testing and all, what you have to do is data has to be defined first in certain location. Okay, you have to ask your script saying that use this data or use this data. To say that, first you have to store all the data whatever you want to use. Okay, whatever the data you want to use, you store all the data in certain location. Then you can ask your script saying that okay, data is stored here, and then you read the data from this location and pass to the script. This is called as data parameterization. This concept you call it as data parameterization. Then so what you are doing is, instead of storing the data directly in the script, you are storing the data in a location, external location, and reading the data from there. So the advantage with this is, okay, if you store the data in external location, in case tomorrow you have to execute the script, but data has to be a different data has to be passed. Inputs are changed here. Earlier you are passing one value. Now this for this execution you want to pass a different value. Okay. So in such cases, if you hardcode the data, that means if you directly write the data inside the script, for every execution, whenever the data changed, you have to go to your script and then do the modification. This requires a lot of effort every time. To avoid that, what we do, we store the data externally. Whenever the data is changed, you don't need to change the script. You go to that external location and then you do the modification. If you update the data there in the external location, you can easily execute for any type of data whatever you want. Easy to modify it is. Anytime whenever you want to modify the data, you can just go to open that file and then you can do the modification. So save a lot of effort here. Then what is this external file here? So this external file can be an Excel. You can store the data in Excel, one of the best way to store the data, or something called XML people use, or some people use something called CSV, comma separated value. Some people use text files or use database also. Okay, there are various external files out there. But when you are using automation tools like QTP or UFT, you call it as now, or something called test complete or some commercial tools, they give inbuilt feature to store the data. But we prefer to the external, because if you store inside the tool, then every time you have to open the tool for every script and then you do the modification. You will learn this in the tool. But one of the best way of data parameterization is you store the data in Excel and then we read the data from Excel. The reason, because it's very simple to store in Excel, very simple to use Excel. You don't need to have too much knowledge to update the data in Excel, right? Or you don't need too much of knowledge to understand the parameters in the Excel. Like first row will be the parameters always, column headers. Okay, so it will be very easy to maintain when we store the data in Excel. This is the main reason why we need to learn how you can, because since the data is being stored in Excel here and we are taking the data from Excel, that means our scripts are taking the data from Excel. Okay, so it's very important to write the script to connect it to the Excel file and then read the data from Excel. This concept is common in any tool whatever you use. Data parameterization is quite common thing, but you use different methods depends on the language the tool is using. Some tools uses vbscript so that you can use the same piece of code that whatever we are going to write now. If you are working on Selenium uses Java, but process will be similar, but methods will be little different there. They may use different class there. In Java, they might have defined a different class. When you are using some tools called coded UI and all, again same like almost vbscript. It will be same like vbscript, very similar to that. Okay, so this kind of things are the conceptual wise it is common across the tools, but the methods what use different. Little different. So this is the main purpose of Excel. Okay, why we are learning how to read or how to write the data into the Excel. So it is like that. Why we need to write? Because sometimes application generates some values automatically. Depends on the action that you execute. Let's say I am executing a script for creating purchase order. Now, when I create a purchase order, application will generate one unique ID for the purchase order. You don't provide that ID, purchase order ID. Application itself will create it. Then what you have to do, whatever the ID you have created, you need to capture that ID, you need to store externally, because that ID I want to use it in some other place. So yeah, I have to store it somewhere. So then the storage you can do it in Excel also. So in such cases, you have to write the data into the Excel. So sometimes you need to read or sometimes you need to write into the Excel as well. Okay, this is the main purpose why we are giving this much preference to read the data from Excel, because it is very important in automation. Okay, so parameterization is one of the key concept in automation testing. No matter what tool that you use, in every tool, okay, parameterization is there. Got what I am saying here? Okay, now let's take some reality. Okay, let's take some reality, and how normally a data file will be there, what's the structure that we create and how we read the data from it. Okay, so I have just opened one Excel. Now assume that, just let me explain some flow here. I need to create one purchase order. Okay, so I need to create one purchase order. When we create a purchase order, then the fields will be like this. Have something called supplier name. What is the supplier that you want to select? Then you have to say required date, when the order has to be delivered. When the order has to be delivered. Then you say now address, delivery address you can say. Delivery address. Okay, then next you say payment mode. Okay, so there are header details, these are. Then you call this are parameters. Column headers, nothing but the parameters. Now we can say supplier name is one parameter, and required date is one parameter, and delivery address is one parameter, payment mode could be another parameter, you call it as. The column headers are treated as parameters. Inside parameters you store the values usually. Okay, now I'll say supplier name as some junk value. Okay, so this is supplier name, you just enter some value there. Required date, I'll say maybe so I'll say 10 days. 10 means here 10 days after, from current date 10 days after. Okay, 10 days after. Sorry, if you say 10, if you say before earlier, you say minus 10. 10 means, okay, if it is current date, then you just say today. If you say today here, it is current date. Then if it is future date, you just say 10 or 5. something like that you can give. If you give positive number, that means it's a future. If you give negative number, it is past. Okay. Then delivery address must be, okay, I'll just say BTM layout. BTM layout. So Bangalore, that's how it is. Payment mode is check. Okay, payment mode is check. Okay. This is header details of the purchase order. I'm just format this. This is not important, but this is just to know how many. Only just to this is not required, but this is only to show it as a table kind of. I mean, this is clear to see. Okay, watch the detail. Then this is for header details. Then I'm just changing the name of the sheet like header details. Header underscore details. Now, next what I do is item details. Now that means, okay, what are the items that you want to add, number of items, but I am just maintaining in a different sheet as of now. Then what I will do is here item name MRP, or you can say instead of MRP you call it as unit price. Then what is the quantity that you want to add, right? Then you can add multiple items, right? Not one item, you can add maximum 100 items to the order. Then what are the items that you want to add? Then you can just list out like this. Okay, so some item, unit price is maybe $20, something like that. Total quantity is 5. That item, okay, 5 quantity that I need to add to the order. So this is some other item, and this quantity price is 3. Some item name or quantity is 9, or quantity is 25, and cost is maybe 10. I want the quantity. Okay, so unit price is 25. Like that. Now if I want to add 3 items to the purchase order, I will enter 3 items in the list. So I will ask my script saying that, okay, I have added 3, I have given 3 items in the Excel, add all 3. So if I give 10 items there, script should add 10 items, whatever I have given in the Excel. But I don't know, see, depends on the execution that I am doing. Sometimes I may give 3, sometimes I may give 10, sometimes I may give 20, sometimes I may give only 1 item also. But my script should automatically understand how many items we have given in the Excel here, and then script should work accordingly. Okay, if I have added 4 items here, it has to loop. So loop through all 4 items, take one by one item, add that item to the script. Sorry, to the order, whatever the order is being created. But forget about the script we write in the application. But at least we should know how to read the data from Excel. If we know this, then we can go and write the script for order. We read the value from here and we pass to the original script. Right? Getting what I am saying here. So like this, normally we create the data files. So for each functionality or for each test case that you have, you may create one sheet, or there is an alternative also. Instead of creating one sheet, there is one more possibility that you can do, something called tables and all you maintain in the Excel, that you will learn slowly. Okay. But as of now, assume that for one scenario or maybe for one test case, that whatever you have, for one test case we are creating one sheet, and number of fields we have in the test case or number of fields we have on the screen. For each field you are creating one parameter here, and then you are specifying what is the input that needs to be provided for that particular field in the application. So this is how normally we create the data files. Then you save this Excel file and then you save it in C drive samples. I'm saving it in C drive samples. Then you can say po data.xlsx. So what is the name of the file? po underscore data.xlsx. Save. Okay. Now data file has been created for me. Data file has been created for the purchase order test case. Then what I have to do is, before I go and write the test case to execute that, first I should read the data, whatever the input that I have provided here, I should read those inputs. Then we can work on the remaining piece of code, but not so immediately, a little later. Getting what I am saying here? Then question is here, how can I read the data from this Excel? How can I read the data from this Excel? So just earlier we just learned Excel.application, the basics of Excel.application object, how we can read the data. Let's see that same thing now in detail. Okay. Then say first I want to read it. Then to read the data, first you define the data file path. Okay. Then say str file path equal to where is that? C drive. It is under samples. Is it? What is the spelling of? We have written there. It is samples. So spelling mistake made for that folder. That is okay. So we have written the folder like this. This is samples, and then po underscore data dot. File name is not case sensitive. Path is not case sensitive. You can give in any case the file name, the path, no problem. Okay. Set oxl equals to create object. We say excel dot application. Okay. So first you need to create the application. Then since I need to read the data and all, I don't need to open the application for visibility. Internally it can read, no problem. I don't want to see the application opened, that Excel application. So what I need is, I don't want to open that Excel, but I want to read the data. Let it be visible or invisible, I don't mind. In fact, we prefer to run in invisible mode because we want to see only application opened, no other files to be visible. Okay. Now, next what I have to do is, to read the data from that, I need to open that workbook, right? Okay, so I need to connect to that workbook. Then that file is an existing file here, existing workbook. Then you say workbook start open. So this is used for opening the workbook. Say str file path. That excel.workbooks.open str file path. This will open the workbook. Whatever the workbook is nothing but the file that we have created. You call it as a workbook. Then you say set workbook. Since I need to work with this workbook, then I need to take that workbook into a variable. Next. Okay, so we have taken this Excel into one, that workbook into one variable, that instance. The reason why we have taken that instance into a variable, because we need to deal with that workbook in remaining piece of code. Okay, now I got the workbook. Next what I have to do, I need to read the data. I don't read the data from complete workbook. I read the data from particular sheet only. Now I have two sheets there. So first what I have to do is I need to enter the header details. Right, so if I want to enter the header details, I need to read the data from header sheet. So the sheet name what we have given is header details, right? So I need to access that particular sheet now. Then how do we do that? So set O sheet equals to, okay, O sheet equals to, or you can give any variable name. Just to say, instead of saying O sheet, you give the name as, give the O header sheet. You can give any name, no problem, but just make sure that you provide the name meaningful, very meaningful. People should easily understand, what sheet that you are accessing here, what sheet that you are storing in this variable, and it should be little meaningful. Okay, so as far as you are giving a meaningful name, you can give any variable name, no problem. Okay, but this is very important in interviews also. Okay, remember that, because sometimes what happens is, even though you write the logic very well, and if your logic is accurate, but still the standards what you follow makes the difference. Okay, makes the difference always. But that gives the impression. If you are following better standards, that gives an impression saying that you are wide experienced. Okay, then how do you access a particular sheet? You say that workbook, whatever you have initiated here, that workbook dot, you say worksheets, or you can also specify, instead of worksheets, you can also specify as sheets. Both are same. Okay, there is no difference between sheets and worksheets. You can use worksheets or you can use sheets, no problem. You call it as, the other term is, we use worksheet, that's it. Okay, worksheets, and it's not sheet 1, because I have changed the name of the sheet, right? So if the sheet name is sheet 1, then okay, you can give that. But I have changed that sheet name. There is no sheet called sheet 1 in that workbook. So the sheet name I have changed is, so this sheet name also not case sensitive. You can give in any case, no problem. If the sheet name is in uppercase there in the Excel workbook, it's not mandatory that you have to give in uppercase here, the name. You can give in any name, no problem, any case, sorry. Okay, so now what we are doing here, we are accessing header details sheet. Then what I have to do is, I need to read the data now. So what is the first thing that I need to do? I need to enter the supplier name. Then I want to read the data from supplier name column. There is a first column is supplier name here. But if I want to read the data, see, remember, first row is for column headers. But you don't need to read the header. You don't pass the header to the application. But what you do, you pass the data. Where the data is stored? In the second row. First row, we stored only the headers, but we have to read the data from second row, because data is stored in second row. Getting what I am saying here? So you read the data from second row and first column, because supplier name is the first column, data is there in the second row, right? Then what you do is here, str supplier name equal to o sheet dot o header sheet, right? Sorry, header sheet dot cells of, say, 1 or 2. It should be 2, because second row, right? The data is there in second row. 2 comma 1 dot value. Okay, so dot value. This reads the data from second row, first column. Okay, now if you say message box str supplier name, it should display the supplier name whatever we have placed in the supplier name column, okay, which is there in the second row of first column. Okay, then once I read that, I will close that workbook. Then I will quit from application. I will quit from application. Then I'll say reading data. That's it. Okay. Then what I'll do is I'll execute this file now. So what it is doing now? It is giving the supplier name that whatever we have entered. The reason why it is showing this, because we have given in the script, we have given like second row first column. What is there in second row first column? This is the value. This is the same value which is being displayed. Okay, now you consider this. What we have done here is, if you consider, we have hard coded the row number and column number. We are not saying our script saying that read the supplier name. Our requirement is reading the supplier name. But the way we told to the script, what did we tell? Did we tell to the script anywhere saying that read supplier name? We have not told. When you look at this particular script, we told to the script saying that read the value from second row first column. Don't think what is there in the second row first column. Whatever is there, you just get that. That's what we told to the script. This is called hard coding row number and column number. But do you give guarantee that supplier name will be there in the first column always? Today I created the data file, and according to the current data structure in the file, supplier name is there in the first column, so that I have given the first column in the script. But what happened is, later somebody, in our automation, we are doing some enhancements to the scripts, and there is some change in the application as well, so some extra fields have come. Then what happened is, somebody created one more column here. Then they have added something called serial number. Say 1. Okay, so now what they did is, they added one more column before supplier name. Now where the supplier name column is? Supplier name column is second column. But now according to the script, what you have done here? You have said first column. The reason why you have said first column here, because earlier supplier name column was there in the first column, so that you have given as per the earlier structure. But there is a data file structure has been changed a little bit, and one of the column has been moved. If one column is moved, remaining column also will be impacted. So the position of the columns have been changed. Now if I execute this, what it will do? It is reading whatever is there in the first column of second row. But is that the right data now? That's not a right data. But unfortunately, this is how happens most of the times. Column numbers will be changing. It's not today it is in the first column, but there is no guarantee that always it has to be in the first column. Sometimes it may move to the next columns, right? Or sometimes that column itself may not exist. Somebody may delete it, because tomorrow supplier name will be taken automatically. Just my application has been enhanced, or application has been changed, saying that okay, as soon as you navigate to the purchase order, take that supplier name automatically. Okay, I don't need to enter the supplier name. Since I don't need to enter the supplier name in the application now, it is taking automatically, then somebody may come and delete the column. In that case, what happens? It will take wrong data, whatever is there in the first column. Getting what I am saying here? So, but method is right here. What method we have written is right, but the column number should not be hard coded. Unfortunately, that cells, that sheet dot cells will accept only the numbers, will not accept any column header there. Okay, so you have to say row number and column number mandatorily. But column number is changing. What should I do here? So what we need to do is, before we give this step, before we write this step and before we write the column number, first what I have to do is, I need to understand where the column is. But I can't do it manually every time, because every time it is changing, and I cannot open the Excel manually every time and understand where that supplier name is and go and change the script. If I am doing this, every time I need to do the modification. But the assumption when you are doing automation testing, assumption is it has to work automatically. If you are doing that manually, open that Excel and understand where that supplier name column and go and update the script, every time if you do that, there is no difference between automation testing and manual testing. Because again you are spending a lot of time here. So script should automatically read it. Now what I will do is, to my script? I will just give the column name as supplier name. When I provide the column name as supplier name, my script should automatically retrieve the number. Okay, supplier name is this, is in this column, first column or second column or third column. It has to return me the number, and that number I will take and pass to the cells here, this line. Getting what I am saying? So that means instead of giving the number, I give the column name as an input. When I provide the column name as an input, it has to automatically search where that column is and then pass to this line. Okay, so question is here, how it will automatically search? Is there any method available to retrieve the column number based on the header you provide? Unfortunately, there is no method available to retrieve the column number based on the column header. We don't have any method available in the Excel. In this case, what you need to do is, since the inbuilt method is not available, you need to write some logic here. You need to write some logic to retrieve the column number automatically. Then how do you write, how that logic looks like is, first you take how many columns are there. You take how many columns are there in this Excel. Not how many columns are there, how many columns are used. Okay, how many columns are used? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That also will be changing automatically, because today 5 columns, tomorrow new fields may get introduced. We may add some more new columns, right? So my script should automatically retrieve how many columns are there, how many columns are used. Then loop it from first column to last column, how many columns are there. Retrieve the data from first row, nothing but the column header. Retrieve the data from first row from every column. First time first column first row, second time second column first row, third time third column first row. Why only first row? Because we need to get the column header first to understand in which column it is. Take one by one column header, compare that column header with your expected column. Whenever any of the column header is matching with your expected name, take that number. At what number that header is matching? That number nothing but column number. So what you need to do now is, first you need to take how many columns are there in this Excel, how many columns are used, loop it from first column to last column, get one by one column name and compare that column name with the column name that what you are looking for. If any of the column name is matching with your expected one, take that number. At what number that column name is matched. That number represents the column number. That's a logic that we need to write. Okay, when you take this particular logic, the first thing is here, I need to take the total number of columns. I need to get how many columns are used in the sheet, right? So if 10 columns are used, then it has to return as 10. If 5 columns are used, it has to return as 5. If 20 columns are used, it has to return as 20. Okay, that's the first thing in our logic. Okay, write down. Getting the total columns used in a sheet. Okay. So to get the total number of columns used in a sheet, say this particular sheet, whatever the sheet it is, that sheet dot, there is something called used range. You call it as used range. Used range in a sense, the range which has been used in the Excel. A range is nothing but rows and columns. Okay, how many rows and how many columns are used, range will be set accordingly. Okay, used range means the range which is used. Okay, used range dot say columns dot count. So that will return total number of columns which are used. right. Now you say total columns. So what it is doing is here, when you say user range dot columns dot count, that sheet, user range is nothing but the rows range which has been used. All this called as user range. That is the range which is used in the Excel. Okay, that whatever I have selected here, that is called as used range. In that range, take that user range, from that range count the columns. Okay, so if two more columns or two more rows are used, then the selection will be extended accordingly based on how much range of data you have stored here, how much range of columns and rows you have used, then user range will get that. Okay, so from that range whatever is used, count the columns. That's what that method that's what the method made for. Okay, say message box total columns, right, total columns. Then let's see what it returns here. There is a spelling mistake. Sorry. Okay. So total 5 columns have been used. And now 4 because I deleted one column. So it is returning how many columns are used. Then what I have to do next, I need to understand where that supplier name column is there out of all 4. Maybe it may be there in the first column, it may be there in the second column, or it may be there in the third column, something like that. It may not be there also. It is there, return that number. If it is not there, return 0. Okay, if it is 0 means column is not there. If it is there, it should return some number here. So in this case what you have to do is, you got total number of columns, right? You loop it from first column to last column, get one by one column header. How do you, the assumption is here column header will be there in the first row. Column header will be there in the first row. That is quite common, you know, that's a standard. All your column headers in Excel should be placed in the first row always. Okay, now you say for I equals to 1 to total columns. Let me comment out this message box. So I am saying for loop here, I am using for loop. The reason why I am using for loop, because I know how many columns are there here. So how many times loop to be executed, we know that. Then what I say is here str column name equal to o sheet dot, sorry, o header sheet here. O header sheet dot cells of row number 1, because from first row only I need to retrieve every time, because column header it is comma I. Column number will be changing. First time it will be 1 comma 1, second time it will be 1 comma 2, third time it will be 1 comma 3, fourth time it will be 1 comma 4. The reason why it is like this, because assumption is first row column header will be there in the first row always, but we don't know the column number. So that's the reason I am increasing the column number every time and getting the data from first row only. First row and one by one column we are getting. But before we do the comparison, first let us display, see whether it is taking one by one column name or not. Then let's say message box str column name. First column name, second one, third one, fourth one. Taking one by one column header here, right? I am just displaying one by one. I am not doing any comparison. Now what I will do is, I will give my expected column name here. Say str expected column name equal to, I will give supplier name, or user may give in different case also when he is searching. I am giving the expected column name there. Now what I have to do is, I need to understand what is the number for that particular column. What is the number for that particular column? How do we do that? So what I will do is, I am using one extra variable called int column number. Default value for that particular column is 0. When that column number should be updated? When this str column name is matching with expected column name, then update the int column number with I value, because I represents the number here, column number. In case if no column is matched, keep that int column number as 0 only, right? Then how your logic will be now? If whenever you are comparing, right, to, so don't directly compare variable 1 equal to variable 2, convert both into a standard case, because you don't need Excel. Somebody might have written in camel case, that nothing but sentence case, or they might have written column headers in small, or expected you might have given in small case. I mean, case may vary, but case is not a matter here, name is a matter. So you convert both into one case, maybe small or uppercase, both expected and actual, and use the trim, because in Excel by mistake you might have placed a space character which is not visible for you. That may also lead to failure. Okay, so that's the reason whenever you are doing comparison, you say like this: u case of trim of str column name equal to u case of trim of str expected column name. Then say int column number equal to I, because I is representing the number here, column number, 1 by 1 column number. So saying that at ith number, if first column itself matched, I value will be 1 there. So I that 1 I am passing to the int column number. Then once I get the column number, I don't need to continue to the next column. You just stop the execution there. Okay. Now your logic will be like this: if int column number equal to 0. If it is 0, what does it mean? Column is not found, right? If the column is found, then int column number should have been updated with certain number, should not be 0, right? There is no possibility that I can be 0 at any time. So if int column number is 0 means int column number is not updated with ith value. What is that ith value here? Column number. So it is not updated with column number because no column is matching with the expected one. Then you say that if int column number is 0, then give a message box saying that given column does not exist. If int column number is not 0, then you say that you retrieve the value. So what I am doing here, if column number is 0, display message box. If it is not 0, then you say int column number here. Wherever that column is there, go to that particular column and then get that. I am not hard coding the column number. Got what I am saying here? I am not hard coding the column number now. So column, but for cells I am using number only, but the number is coming automatically based on previous logic. So in this logic, what we are doing, first we are getting total number of columns, looping from first column to last column, getting one by one column header. How can you say column header here? Because I am getting from first row from each column. Then I am comparing each column whatever I am getting from Excel, column header, comparing with my expected column. If any of the column is matching with my expected column, I am taking the number of it at what number that column is matching. Then I am passing to the cells, get the data from second row and so on so column, wherever that column is there. Okay, got what I am saying here? If the column number is not there, int column number remains 0 only, then give a message box. Instead of getting the value, give a message box saying that this column does not exist. Let's see how it works now. So supply name I just displayed and it is getting the data now. Because first what I am doing is I am displaying each and every column, I am just comparing after that. First column itself matched, so that it went for first column only. Now next what I do is, one more column introduced. Now that is a second column. Let's see this time it gets the data or it gets a wrong data or right data. So save this Excel. First column is S and O, will not match, so that it will go to the second column. So it's looping. Second column is matching. Then it will take that and it should stop the loop there. Now again it is taking the right value. So that means it is going to second column only. Now let's see that column is not available. Instead of supplier, I just said, sorry, supply name. Now that column is not there. It has taken the first column, not matching. Go to the second column. This also will not match. Third column, fourth column, fifth column. So it is looping through all the columns. No column is matching. Then it says that given column does not exist instead of getting the value. This is how we get the column numbers automatically. We don't have any inbuilt method, but since inbuilt method is not available, we write our own logic. Now, just assume that you need to, it's not like you retrieve only the supplier name, right? You also retrieve the date, required date. You also retrieve the payment method, payment mode, and you also retrieve the address, everything that you need to retrieve. Every column number is keep changing, right? Then you should not hard code the column number for anything. So for every column you have to retrieve the number automatically if you want to retrieve the data from that column. What should you do? That logic what we have written for supplier name, one column. If you want to retrieve the data from 5 columns one by one, for all 5 columns you have to get the numbers one by one. Same logic should be written for 5 columns. So if I want to write the same logic for 5 columns, the expected column will be changing. I need to write the logic for 5 times, right? How many lines have how many lines I have written here? 9 plus another 5. Now another 6 lines, right? So another 15 lines of code I have written to get the data from one column. So if I want to get the data from 5 columns, 15 into 5, right? 75 lines I need to write just to get the data from 5 columns. Is it right? It's not, obviously, because when you are writing, it's not only the logic what you are writing. So you may write accurate logic, but the lines of code that you have written also matters. That's one of the standard as well. So you have to reduce the lines of code as much as you can. Now how can I reduce the lines of code here? Yeah, since I am writing the same logic, but only thing is the column number is being very here, column name, what I can do is we can make that as a one function. You can make it as one function. And what is the use of function? To make the script reusable. Obviously you are writing the same logic, but only thing is column name is an input here, sheet and column name. From this sheet, this column we need to search for. I provide those two as inputs. What is the sheet and what is the column name? We provide those two as inputs. So a function should take the input of sheet and column name. It has to search for the column automatically inside the sheet, given sheet. It should retrieve the column number or the value. So why we need to make that? Because I need to make it as reusable, because same logic I need to write again and again for all the columns in different sheets. This is the main use of the function. But let it be for now. First we will complete this and then I will come back to the functions creation. But we have already discussed about user defined functions. But if I create that function now, it becomes little complex. But take this requirement, keep this requirement pending. Once we complete with Excel, I will come back and then we will discuss about the function. How do we create the function here? Okay, how do we use the function? Okay. You got clear this one? So this is how you read. In case if the column number is keep changing, what you do is first you write the function to get the column number automatically. Inside that function, logic will be like this: get total number of columns, saying that sheet.userRange.columns.count. You get the total number of columns, loop it from first column to last column, get one by one column header, compare the column header with your expected column. If any of the column header is matching with your expected column name, take that number where it is matching, then pass that to the cells. Okay, so this is for getting the column number. Okay, so you can get the data from any of the column, whatever you want. One part. Now the next thing is here for me, I need to read item details. I need to read item details. When I want to read item details, it's not only from one row I read. I need to read all the items that whatever I have given. If I have given 10 items, it has to read all 10 items, but not once, one by one. If I have given 20 items, it has to read one by one item 20 times. Right? But if you see this logic, I am getting the column number automatically, but row number is hard coded. Every time it will read only from second row. But I don't want to read only from second row. I want to read from all the rows one by one, starting from second row to last row. One by one I need to get. What should I do now? What's the logic it should be? You got what I am saying? I need to read all the items there. Each item is placed in different row under first column. What should I do? When we are reading one by one column, what did we do? We got the total number of columns, looped through first column to last column. But when I want to read all the rows, what should I do? I need to get all the rows, count of the rows, how many rows are there. Total rows nothing but total items placed. Loop it from second row to last row. Why second row to last row? First row is column header. I don't need to read that. And loop it from second row to last row, because items are started from second row in the Excel. Second row to last row, get one by one item from each row. So the question is now, here we know how to get total number of columns, how to get total number of rows in the Excel. Right? Let me take the same here. Same thing. Let me create one more file now. One more VBS file. This time, okay, I don't need this as well. But this item details. Now this time not total columns, say total rows, but this is not columns, this should be rows, and instead of header item sheet. Okay, so to get the total number of rows used in one sheet, you can say that sheet dot user range dot rows dot count. So that will give total number of rows used in the sheet. When you say message box then what I am doing is, for I equals to 1 to total rows, okay, yeah, it should be second onwards. Maybe if you say 1, it will read column header also. Then what I am doing is, for now I will hardcode the column number, say read the data from first column only, sales of I comma 1. That means first time 1, 2 comma 1, 3 comma 1, 4 comma 1. That means from each row read the data from first column. Dot value. So after reading this, you close the workbook and then you close the application. Okay, so got what I am saying here. I am just reading, first getting the count of total rows and looping from first row to last row, and then displaying reading the data from one by one row from first column, okay, of every row. Now there are total 4 rows in the sheet. Total 4 rows. It is first item name, because I have given second. Loop is starting from second row. This is I equals to 2. Third. So it is taken 1 by 1. So this is how you take how many rows are there in the Excel. Okay, so if you want to loop through all the columns and all the rows, first you get the rows count, you get the columns count. Loop it from first row to last row. Inside nested loop also you can use. Okay. So this is how we read the data. Okay. So we'll stop here today, and tomorrow we will see the styling part and some other things related to the Excel. Like it may go little complex tomorrow, but not immediately. Once we read the remaining methods, we have to create some functions. We will need to create our own methods. I'll be changing the data structure little bit tomorrow. Okay. Fine. So